Good evening, everybody. My name is Eleanor Ingersoll. I lead the Queen Village Neighbors Association, and I'd like to welcome you to our monthly community meeting via Zoom. Tonight, we are putting you in touch with city leaders to learn up-to-date information and pose questions. Our panelists for the program this evening are Captain Hartzell of the 3rd Police District with a safety update. We also have Trina Bodnik, Deputy Commissioner, as well as Commissioner Lisa Deely, who can update us about mail-in and in-person voting because the election is less than 2 weeks away. And we also have Councilman Squilla with an update about initiatives and budgeting in light of the city's $740 million budget shortfall due to the pandemic. This evening, we will ask you to please use the chat function for questions during the panelists you wish to address. Please do refrain from comments that can sometimes tend to bury those very important questions. So we will begin this evening with Captain Hartzell because we have situations in Queen Village which have been coming into our office, coming into me personally, and discussions with other parents. But first and foremost, we did have a shooting in the neighborhood at 3rd and Christian Street. So Captain, if we could begin with an update on that.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Captain Hartzell from the 3rd District. Yesterday morning at approximately 11:56 a.m., a 33-year-old male who was working for FedEx was shot multiple times on 3rd Street, right at the intersection of Christian. At this time, the male is expected to survive. We're not totally certain what the motive is at this time, but we're thinking that this could actually be gang-related. There was a second person in close proximity to the shooting victim who we know is tied up, was part of the gang lifestyle. What I can definitively say at this time is we don't think it was a robbery of a FedEx driver, and there's nothing as a part of the victim's employment or his lifestyle that resulted into that shooting. So all this information is still subject to further review. South detectives are engaged in an ongoing investigation, but they're working hard on that in terms of obtaining video surveillance and reviewing ballistics and things of that nature. In the meantime, I do have extra officers deployed in that general area just to ensure that nothing else happens.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that update. And as questions come in, I'll be sure to share them with you. Secondly, we put out an informational e-newsletter about, as I said, the reports that have been coming in about harassment of young kids as well as adults by an ever-changing band of young kids, probably between the ages of like 9 and 11 or 12, and centering around Wekiko Playground and outward. Now, in the email that I shared with the community, it involves slapping on the backside. It involves rushing up. There was an attempted cell phone theft. There have been verbal reports about tip jars being swiped on 4th Street, etc. And the parents that I spoke to did have some reservations about calling 911 or placing a police report. But I want to hear from you what the best course of action is in these situations.
All right, well, I'll just kind of run down. You had a couple bullet points in reference to this. I've gotten very few actual police reports about this behavior. Most of the information I'm getting is either people sending me emails or from you, Eleanor, from community groups. I'm getting things such as kids are opening mailboxes, yelling inside the doors, assaulting other children, the inappropriate touching, throwing objects at adults, and many other things. So what I can say is every week I put out a list of locations that I want officers to keep an eye on, get out of the car, walk around, just keep an eye on that general area as much as they can. The area around Wekiko Park, 400 Catherine, 400 Queen, that's been on my list for the last couple of weeks for officers to do. And I'm going to continue to have them do that to ensure that there's a police presence in the area as much as we can. One of the things I do want to explain is it doesn't mean you're going to see an officer in that area 24/7. Very simply, an officer's time is limited by several things. And, if there's major incidents in the district, such as the shooting at 3rd and Christian, that ties up resources, the volume of 911 calls during a certain time of the day, I'm still losing personnel on a daily basis to help staff protest details throughout the city and just general staffing issues. However, when officers are available, that is the prime location I want them checking on in that general area. In terms of,
oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I was going to ask you a follow-up question, but it can wait. Please continue.
Okay. One of the things I did want to stress is it is important that you call 911 when these incidents are going on. Very simply, it creates an official record and documents that we have an ongoing issue in the neighborhood and ensures that the records that we have are accurate. I know, especially with the pandemic, and it's a newer generation, a lot of people rely on things such as like the Neighbors app, Nextdoor apps. They're fine, but the problem I see with them sometimes is second and third hand information is being passed around and it gets diluted or misinterpreted. And very simply, it's not always accurate. And it can create, I guess, for lack of a better word, sometimes panic in the community about what actually is going on. And also, if it's just being reported to neighborhood associations, it kind of goes through that same thing where it could be second, third hand information. And by the time I'm getting that information, it's hard for us to address it. So most importantly, if people call 911, it's creating a record and it's getting an officer out there as soon as possible to address whatever is going on, to try to stop it in its tracks that evening or that afternoon, whatever it may be. One of the other things that you had listed was intervention versus punishment. And at this point, I can't make any clearer. I have no interest in arresting any use if it doesn't have to be done. But what I'm getting from the general community is everyone feels that this is an escalating situation. If police presence and some of the intervention techniques that we're trying don't work, unfortunately, we might have to resort to not punishment, but following through with the criminal justice system if the acts that these young people are engaged in are actually crimes. The only thing I want to note about is with police presence and intervention, what's apparent from some of the behaviors that are being reported, the kids that are involved, they don't have a whole lot of respect for adults or elders. And many times they don't have a lot of respect for the officers. So obviously I want to try to do things to intervene, to slow this down, including officer presence. However, we might have to start using the legal system moving forward if it doesn't go away. Now, in terms of the intervention, some of my personnel had a meeting yesterday with management from the Courtyard Riverview Apartments, representatives from Nebinger and the Vare schools, also Town Wash Integrated Services that gets involved with many of these school issues these days, and then some of the parents and nearby youth who I believe that Courtyard believes that could be involved in some of this activity. Very simply, the message during this meeting was that this type of behavior can't continue and that moving forward, it could have serious ramifications, but we don't want it to get to that point. We want the children that are involved to curtail their behavior. What Lieutenant Landis has passed along to me is some of the parents weren't very receptive. Very simply, they're saying, it's not my child, they're not involved in this. But one of the major things that all the parents were kind of sharing was that there's a lack of after school programming for the children. So there's nothing constructive for them to do. So some of the things that we're doing in the 3rd District, there's a program called Hood Savior, where they've been running basketball programs for about the last year over at 4th and Washington in the playground, just giving the young people a safe environment to learn to play basketball and, again, to have something constructive to do. They're looking to add a flag football program at evening during the course of this fall. So Officer Delgado, the community relations officer, he's very involved with them, and they're very helpful in terms of this problem and trying to make sure there's constructive activities. Officer Delgado is also trying to do a couple other things. He's trying to set up a movie night in and around that area. So the children have something to do, and we're just going to try to build upon that. Again, the idea is to try to get some constructive activities so that there's not idle time where kids are engaging in these, at a minimum, nuisance behaviors. So basically, what I'm looking for is a couple suggestions from the group that's present tonight. First and foremost, is there something that we can do as a community to provide more constructive activities for the youth, whether it be sports programs, school programs, things of that nature? My other question is there anything else you would like to see the police doing in that area to engage this situation? And then very simple, if anyone has any kind of other suggestions that we can try, I just wanted to obviously I'll answer any questions anyone has, but with members of the community, I think maybe we can talk through this and come up with some action items moving forward to address this issue.
Well, all of this sounds extremely promising, and we want to continue to, the Neighborhood Association, work with you, work with Councilman Squilla and our other partners in the community to make sure that we can provide something in some fashion for a more constructive downtime after this very taxing virtual learning that the majority of kids in the city are involved in right now. We do have about 77 participants, and I'm looking at the first question that came in that says, we also want to restore after school programming in conjunction with the courtyard folks, and BVNA has already obtained 3 volunteer tutors, but we need more. And that comes from Joseph Alkis from BVNA, which is great. And it goes to show that if a partnership like this and police are willing and doing this outreach as well, that we can chip in. And I look forward to doing that again with all of our partners. And at this moment, if you wouldn't mind hanging around for a little bit, Captain Hartzell, I don't see any more questions coming in, but in case they do with any late arrivals, I'd love to be able to place them to you. If you need to go, I will definitely continue this conversation with you afterwards, and we can update the community.
Eleanor, can
with
I
future plans.
add one thing on that, what the captain had
Please
said?
do.
I've been trying to push Parks and Rec also to increase programming. And I know during COVID, we as a city sort of shut down programming from our park and recreation centers. And we saw actually the negative impact of that and how that actually impact our youth. And again, there is not much for them to do. And so what they do is create things on their own. It seems like now Parks and Rec is allowing and permitting some activities outdoors, but they're also looking to possibly do some indoors in November with special guidelines, PPE involved. And so we're getting to a point now where people are realizing that we could do these things if we do them safely, but give these folks some structured activities that they will participate. And a lot of the activities and the crime that's being committed, even believe it or not, in the shootings, is a lot of our young teens. And they really have nothing to do. And we're not saying if they had played basketball, they wouldn't be out doing something. Some of these kids are going to do it anyway, but at least we could have the majority of those folks involved. And the captain mentioned, the hood savior, Jermaine or Daytona. He's been a great asset over at Saks Playground, and looking to do, if we could get that flag football started and allow that. Right now, it's not allowed in Parks and Recs as permitting, but if we could do it, or maybe even have in the beginning, let's start it and do it through drills and having drills being done to get the kids involved. So there's still some structure that is allowed within the city Department of Rec, I think is important. So I really appreciate the way we reached out to everybody with the courtyard, with the community organizing, and to try to address this problem from within, because that's really the only thing that's going to work. It's not going to work just through pure policing. It is important to understand that there is a need for that. If somebody gets carried away and out of hand, there's sometimes that's why we have our officers there to make us safe. But if we could work together as a community, and I know you were involved with a lot of the after-school programs over there in the courtyard, and what that means to the youth there, and how they remember being actively involved and giving good, positive, creative things to do, is something we need to stress. And that's, it's up to us to continue that push to Parks and Rec to make sure that they, we could do it safely, but make sure it's allowed and do it in a way, because if not, these kids are going to do things unsafe and going to play anyway, and not do things that are beneficial to the community. So I really want to commend the captain and the community for getting involved and looking at positive ways to change the negative behavior.
And I thank you, Councilman, because I'm seeing some good ideas coming through here from people on our Zoom about starting some entrepreneurship, maybe involving some dance, and a lot of our cultural institutions are in a semi-pause, so maybe we could outreach with that. But it's very promising to hear you say that Parks and Rec a little bit to think outside the box with safety protocols and structured after-school activities. is probably at the top of the list. And I would look forward to pursuing that more. And I do want to go back because we have one person asking, Matt Atkins, Captain would like to know what leads you to believe that the shooting at 3rd and Christian could be gang related.
Yeah, so like I said, there was another person in close proximity to the shooting victim who is very well known to me and my officers as being involved with a gang lifestyle. And very simply, that's not an area where he would frequent. It's an area that would put him in danger. Nearby persons would want to do this person harm just based on the knowledge I have. So right now, that's the most likely motive. However, that's not confirmed at this time.
Was he also a FedEx employee?
At this time, it appears he was working for FedEx, which is why I believe he was in the area at the time.
We also have a question going back to the ATV and dirt bike situation. It seems that the question is what is being done, but I think there have been the rotating street closures, and it seems how would you gauge that issue, which was very much the topic of our last community meeting in September?
Well, I mean, just to kind of rehash a couple of things, it's not a problem just in the 3rd District or in Queen Village. This is something that we're battling all over the city. Very simply, it's hard for 1 or 2 officers to be able to get these dirt bikes confiscated safely. Oftentimes, if an officer tries to stop them, they flee at a high rate of speed. And based on what our policy says, we can't chase them at that point. Also, they travel in packs, so it's difficult for, again, 1 or 2 officers that may be seeing them to kind of take any action. So the big attractor in South Philadelphia is primarily South Street and Columbus Boulevard, things of that nature within the 3rd District. So it's always going to have that attractor to bring them in here. Also, Broad Street, it's a big problem in Center City and Society Hill as well. Very simply, Deputy Commissioner Dales has been great. He's been setting up details, which involves officers in unmarked vehicles. It involves the use of the police helicopter to spot where these things are. Very simply, the best way to confiscate these vehicles is wait till they come to a stop somewhere. So we're looking for them in places like gas stations where they meet up, where we can stop them safely and confiscate these vehicles. I can say that over the course of the last month and a half to 2 months, from these rotating details that the Deputy Commissioner has put in place, we've confiscated over 120 of these vehicles, and about 15 people have been arrested for various offenses, whether it be warrants or other things of that nature. So I know it's a huge nuisance for the community. I know it's concerning. I know they're going down streets the wrong way. I know they're going around our barricades on South Street. But I think some of the things we're doing on South Street with the lane closures, it begins to begin a deterrent. So I think it's good. The other thing is not enforcement related, but with the cold weather coming, it slows things down. So we battled with this all last year with the dirt bikes and ATVs. It seems like it's been more problematic this year. So we're continuing to look at it. And, the deputy's being very gracious because it's very costly and it takes a lot of resources to run these details. The other thing I can say is the people involved in this, it's like the riding life is kind of like a big culture to them. So part of it is trying to get the messaging out that it's dangerous. We don't want you to do that. And since the councilman's online, I know he's involved with a lot of citizens trying to do something creative, such as creating a park where they can go and ride their dirt bikes where they're not ripping through the city. So there's a lot of things. It's not a perfect situation. It's not going to change overnight, but we are trying our best to do it, make things safely for the officers, for the community.
Excellent, thank you. And I'm scrolling through quite a few chats here. And again, I appreciate someone recommended gardening. These are all things we're going to keep in our minds about how to come together to provide some structured programming to hopefully deter this. And the one other question came up as we jump back to the shooting. A month ago, there was also a shooting around 2nd and Christian. I believe it involved stray bullets into a car. Was that related gang related, any connection? Is there, was it resolved? Is there an update or a follow-up you can give us about that?
So I can't say if that's gang related or not. What it appears to be is, for people familiar with the area, if you're coming down 2nd Street and would want to make a right on the Christian to go west, obviously you get onto the little cut on the Moyamensing. So it looks like one car did that, and then the car behind it turned on the Christian from 2nd, excuse me, and cut that other vehicle off. So based on geography, it could be gang related, but it could be something as simple as road rage. But detectives haven't been able to do anything definitive with that investigation yet.
And again, the police have no say over this per se, but I know based on our last community meeting, because people are asking different questions about alternatives for the dirt bikes and the ATVs, that that's something that the city is exploring, Councilman, about a possible location, park, and what's available there.
We've been talking to some of the bike life folks and ideas on what they perceive. They believe, honestly, if you have a park, there will be a bunch of the folks to go to, especially if it's close by, because it's sort of like a lifestyle. They want to be with the guys that are really good, and they want to be around them and show them what they could do. Now, we still need enforcement because there's still going to be some people riding on the street. The whole idea about an external park or a location where they could go, no matter where it is that they would have to trail their bikes to there. And what the bike life folks says that they have programs where you join a club, everybody's a member of the club, they could actually trail your bikes. They have these vehicles that go down, pick up 20, 30 bikes, bring them up to the park. And then, you know, that's all part of your fee to be part of that club. And you get to ride with all these guys that are famous, because it may not be something that you and I look at on social media and follow, but there is a big group of people that do that, you know? And so we believe by trying this, we're looking at some things. The city really don't want to get involved in it, but from what these folks says, if there's property or land somewhere that's city owned or even not city owned that they could lease, that they could put these parks together, they would indemnify the city or the property owner. And, you know, to have these parks requirements, they understand they would have to have some form of police presence there at the park and some type of medical personnel there when they're having events and stuff like that. And they have said, we were just reading an article, and I think it's Shamokin, upstate Pennsylvania, just opened a park in an old coal mining farm. And on weekends, they have, you know, hundreds of people that go up there and trail their stuff up there and ride in those parks and really benefit their economy that was falling apart up there. So there's a benefit to this. We have to try to do it right. We're exploring it. Again, will it solve the problem? Absolutely not. But I mean, if with that and enforcement say, hey guys, listen, we have a park over here, go there and ride. You can't ride on our streets. We can take your bike. We have to try something. I think this is it's an exciting idea. Will it work and fix the whole problem? Probably not, but I think it would be put a big dent into what we've been doing every summer. It's getting actually worse and worse. And this lifestyle is getting bigger and bigger. And there's actually sponsors involved for this lifestyle, Suzuki and Honda and some other folks that'll get involved. And hopefully they'll get involved in a park where these guys could really show. These guys are talented, right? But they shouldn't be riding on the streets. We have some incidents of accidents. And, you know, when you're driving on the street, not knowing a car is coming the other way or actually going against traffic, it's very dangerous. So we can't allow it on our streets, but we can work to try to find an alternative.
Well, that would also be a great alternative revenue stream for the city in the middle of its pandemic woes. I want to thank you so much, Captain, for joining tonight. And I also want to end on a note brought up by Nancy Morgenstern that she asked if there's patrolling in the area and what that neighborhood citizen patrolling in the area and what that might look like. And I'm happy to report that Queen Village has had a safety committee in the past, and we are looking to reviving it. And we have a neighbor who is very interested in heading it up. And it looks like our first meeting will be November 10th. So we're going to make sure that that information is blasted out on social media and the like, and our e-news, so we can discuss further some of these productive ideas as well as keeping the kids and neighbors safe in the community. So again, thank you so much, Captain Hartzell, for joining us. And I'm sure we will see you again.
Sure thing. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. And now for the second part of our three-part evening, I would like to welcome Deputy Commissioner Trina Bodnik, who works closely with Lisa Deely, Commissioner Deely, who may be joining us in a bit. But with the election just 2 weeks away or less, I believe there's still some consistent confusion about everything. The application for the mail-in ballots closed on Monday, but there's still, if you've gotten your ballot, where you drop it. No? You can still apply now.
Yeah, there's so much
I will let you
confusion.
start. You can just start from the beginning and walk
Gotcha.
through all the steps to the third. Thank you.
Gotcha, sure thing. So there are so many dates. There's so many deadlines during an election season, and now we've thrown in mail-in balloting, which we always had absentee, but most people didn't take advantage of that, didn't need that. You know, there were requirements for absentee voting, and there are still. But mail-in voting is an option where you don't have to have any specific physical need to vote on paper. So the Monday deadline that you were talking about, that was the last day to register to vote. So if anybody had to change their address, change their party, anything like that, they would have had to have done it a couple days ago. If you are already registered to vote, you can still apply for a mail-in ballot until October 27th. So Tuesday, I believe. You know, we really don't recommend waiting until Tuesday if you're sending in a paper application. Do it right away. Encourage everyone you know to do it right away, because the post office is definitely being inundated with applications and now ballots as well. So we hit the post office twice with our mail-in ballot version of the election. The election is on November 3rd. So 13 days away, not that I'm counting down, but it is 13 days away. And, you know, that's coming really fast and we don't always think about it until it's here. But with the way that we're voting now, it's really two separate elections. It's a mail-in ballot way to vote up until the election, and then it's a standalone on election day election. You know, all one married into one election, but two really separate ways that we are allowed to vote now. So so we have very gratefully had such a huge response to our mail-in voting. You know, we're over 390,000 applications approved for mail-in ballot voting. But what that means is, you know, the post office is gonna have to deal with all of this. So that's why we always really encourage everybody, apply online, apply on paper as soon as possible. What we have given Philadelphians is 17 satellite offices that you can go to. You can go closest to Queen Village would be the Kappa school. So, but there are 17 throughout the city, and I can run through them with you guys. What you can do, what you could have done was register to vote up until Monday. You could have registered to vote, applied for a mail-in ballot. We would have printed it. We print it, hand it to you. We have privacy booths where you can vote and then you hand the ballot right back in. So Pennsylvania doesn't have early voting. That's a kind of a misnomer, that the way that people say it, it's voting on paper before the election. We don't count your vote until the election. It's another thing there's a lot of confusion about. But it's a way to get your vote in to us early before the election. So 17 satellite offices. You don't have to go in your neighborhood if it's easier to go close to home. If you're bringing a parent or a friend or something, and it's easier to go close to their house, you can go anywhere in the city. We are open at the satellite offices from 11:30 till 6:30, Monday through Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're open 9:30 to 4:30 at those satellite offices, 7 days a week. All 17 are full service. You will be able to, up until October 27th, the deadline for the mail-in ballot applications, you'll be able to apply for the first time, get your ballot printed, vote, and hand it right in. After the 27th, we will still have those satellite offices open for people who did not receive their ballot but did apply and were approved. They can get a replacement ballot at those satellite offices. So as it gets closer, people are going to be more nervous that they're not going to get it in time. So they'll be able to go to the satellite office. We'll do a replacement ballot. They'll vote and hand it right in. You know, there are some heavier trafficked satellite offices than other places. You know, so that's something that should be expected. You'll probably have to stand in line on election day. You'll probably have to stand in line at a satellite office. But it has been running smoothly throughout the city. We're hearing really great feedback. People are really happy to have this option, it seems like, to be able to do that.
Let me just review if I
Sure.
can.
Sure.
If you've got you received your mail in the ballot, I mean, you received your ballot in the mail, and you fill it out. We know now that you have to fill it out. You have to put it in the secrecy envelope. You have to put it in the regular envelope, sign the back of that. You can put it in the mailbox, or you can go drop it off directly at one of the satellite offices, but be prepared. You know, there might be a wait, but it's getting in early. The second option then is you're saying that if you apply online and have registered to apply online, you can go and have that printed out at one of the satellite offices, or is that only election day?
So if you apply online, you're going to get it in the mail. You know, and if you get it in the mail and you want to come drop it off at a satellite office, all of the satellite offices have separate lines for just dropping off. So you won't really wait in line if you're just dropping off. There's also drop boxes at City Hall. They're green, Eagles green, drop boxes at City Hall, at the Delaware Avenue office. So at Delaware and Spring Garden, the green ballot drop off. And then there is one more drop off box on Spring Garden down close at the prison on Spring Garden, and I can get you guys the address for that. But
are they inside buildings that are only available at certain hours? They're all outdoors.
They're all outdoors, 24-hour surveillance. So we can always check, make sure, you know, it's legitimate election practices and things like that. To be clear, because I'm at City Hall at least 6 days a week. So what I've encountered with some confusion from some people is trying to hand in maybe their husband or wife's ballot or their child's ballot. Only the voter can handle their own ballot. So you can't hand in someone else's ballot unless if you have an agent form where that person can't physically hand in their ballot. You both sign this agent form, keep it outside of the ballot envelope. So you just drop it in the drop box, or in the box in the satellite office. With the agent form, we would have to see the agent form. If you have two ballots, then one of them will have to have an agent form with it. So that, that's a lot of confusion. People think it's sealed, there's no election fraud or voter fraud, but it's a Pennsylvania law. Only the voter should handle their own ballot.
What is your advice to someone who registers late online, gets nervous that it's not going to arrive in time and be able to be filled out and dropped off and counted in time? Mm-hmm. What's your advice to them?
I would certainly advise them to come to a satellite office, let us know that you did not get your ballot, and you would like a replacement ballot, and it's no problem. There's a barcode on the ballots, so we will not count your ballot twice. We will only count somebody might need 3 replacement ballots. It's, hopefully not. We've already had dogs eating a declaration envelope. That happens every election. And it's not just the ballot. People. It's not that just that they don't receive the ballot. Some people make an incorrect mark. They'll vote for the wrong person, and it's just because you're rushing, or you're not paying attention. Your kids, hungry, whatever. That you get distracted, and you make it. And already it's dozens of people who just are so upset, and they say, what do? I can't vote for this person. I have to get my ballot replaced, and that's fine, because we won't count your ballot more than once. You have a barcode, and there's a very careful process about what we do, but a lot of times replacement ballots are necessary. It's totally fine. Come in, stand in line, get a replacement ballot, fill it out carefully, and hand it back in, and you're all done. I think Eleanor might be frozen.
I think
She
yeah,
frozen.
she didn't like the answer.
I can talk quickly about the other satellite offices besides CAPA, so everybody will know what the other satellite offices are. Are you back, Eleanor? Looks like she's back.
Yeah.
So there's satellite office at Center City, in City Hall. There's one in the far northeast at George Washington High School, in the North Philly's part of the city at the Leocore Center. That is one of our busiest. Center City, City Hall and Leocore are very, very busy. If you're trying to avoid lines, you might want to avoid those. City Hall has gotten a little better lately. In Northwest, we have Roxborough High School. Southwest, we have Tilden Middle School. Upper North, we have Julia de Burgos. West Philly, we have Overbrook Elementary. South Philly, we have Kappa. In Northwest, we have AB Day School. Lower Northeast has J. Hampton Moore. Upper North has Julia Ward Howe. Another part of West Philly has Locke School. Center City has both Delaware and Spring Garden office and the City Hall. The far Northeast has Joseph Brown. Lower Northeast, Harding Middle School. The River Wards has Mastbaum High School. And then Upper North, our last one is Feltonville Intermediate School. So it's all 17. Anybody can go to anyone, whatever's most convenient for you. You guys are close to Kappa, so that'll probably be where most people want to go.
Are they getting admitted?
I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. Oh, Eleanor, you're okay.
For those who don't know or may not be familiar with it, Kappa is the Creative and Performing Arts High School at Broad and Christian, a library way back when, now a wonderful performing magnet school. I did have some questions for you that went on to my next question, but the question for Michael Clemens is, don't you get an extra 3 days after election if you get it in the mail by November 3rd?
If
now
you get
you,
it, I'm sorry, if you get it in the mail by November 3rd, so this is something that we battle all the time is, they're changing laws, and then it depends on what the headline grabs, for people. It has to be postmarked still. So if you're going to take it to the post office, please make sure you don't just drop it in there. Please make sure you take it to the counter and that they'll postmark it for you. But then it still has to get to us by that Friday. So, that's the risk that you're taking if it'll only take 3 days to get to us. We will probably have some postmark that we can't postmark properly that we are not allowed to count. So it's a concern that we have, that people will hear that, people will see that, and they'll think they have 3 more days to get it to us. And that's not the case. So, just really make sure you're voting or getting it in the mail the best you can, as early as you can, certainly by election day.
And yes, we're seeing people saying vote early, vote now. Thank you. You're exactly
Yay.
right, Anita Brooke Dupree. There have been lawsuits. There's been a lot of challenge. We all know that Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is a very important state in this election. How long will you have to count? Now, we're going past the actual ballot part. How well equipped is the office for getting those ballots, all the ballots that came in, counted in whatever the time frame is?
So we certify within 20 days. You know, we always certify the election within 20 days. You know, whenever possible. But we certify within 20 days. And we have been very lucky and, you know, very grateful to have received grants that have allowed us to buy machines that are going to help us open the declaration envelopes, open the secrecy envelopes, and then scan the ballots quickly. So quicker than usual, we will be able to count. We do also have a lot of help. We have a lot of city employees helping us. We just have workers, you know, that we were able to train in the previous weeks, getting ready. We can't do anything. We can't count until Election Day. But we are ready. We are well prepared. And we are going to count just as fast as we can. We're going to work around the clock. We're going to have shifts 24 hours a day, you know, going through 24 hours a day, not covering 20, you know, but people will be working 3 different shifts. So that will just count around the clock. And I, you know, I think it's going to be a lot. It's going to be, we're lucky. It's going to be a lot. There's a lot of people voting by mail. There's a lot of response to this, and it's wonderful. It's great. So it's going to take, you know, it's going to take as long as it takes for us to do it the best way, carefully, and correctly, because as you said, there have been lawsuits, and we have to assume there will be lawsuits.
And I did have a little bit of pause on my end for some technical difficulties, but again, a question came up. If you could just summarize it one last time, because Neil said, "Are you sure about the postmark?" I believe the ruling was that as long as it was received within 3 days, the postmark isn't required. So if there's still confusion about that, I just want to make sure it's crystal clear.
Yes. So I've actually heard both. I've actually heard from different, you know, sources with the state, and I think that's going to have. This happened the last time too. We had to get clarification a week before the election on the postmark issue. So if the problem is, even if it's postmarked by November 3rd, we still have to get it after 3 days. I don't think that if it's not postmarked so if it's not postmarked and we still receive it by Friday, hopefully we can still count it. And that, I think that was still part of the question that we asked for clarification on. So, you know, I can get back to you guys and I can let you know exactly what they're saying about it. That it did, like I said, the last time it changed a week before the election. So I don't want to tell you.
Can't they bring it to one of the drop boxes Election Day too?
Yes.
To guarantee
all the setup. Yes, yes, they'll be open on Election Day. You can do that rather than walk to. Yeah, instead of going to the post office, you just drop it in one of the satellite offices, and the person that's manning the box, the ballot box, they'll just say, "Is this your ballot?" You know, you say yes, and you drop it in the box. It's very quick. It's very quick. It's very easy. But I will, after, you know, we get an answer on the postmark 3-day situation. Hopefully it's the last answer that we get. You know, then I'll get back to you guys, and you guys can kind of post, you know, just get that information out for us.
That would be great. That would be great, because with so much talk about the mail-in ballots, Caitlin Ferry is reminding us that there's still the day of in-person election, and the exact, a lot of the polling sites have been condensed for pandemic reasons for the mail-in. What are the, in this immediate Queen Village, even Bella Vista area, where are the places, and how will notification is being run out? Is it specifically on for the ward to do, website to check? Where are the specific and confirmed nearby polling sites?
So everything's confirmed. We had to condense for the primary election because we really didn't have the workers that we needed. We didn't have the workers. We weren't allowed in a lot of places. So we really had to go down to, I think it was 100, 180, 190 polling locations from our usual close to 800. We have over 700 for the general election. So we are going back. We went back to last year's list. And we had a surge of people interested in working the polls, thankfully. So please be kind to them, because they are wonderful, and they are why this works so well. They're why we can have over 700 polling locations throughout the city. It's astronomical how many people it takes to work a 15-hour day to make sure that you can go and vote in person. So I'm sure there will be lines. Please be kind to those people. They're coming out and working in a pandemic and working a 15-hour day for us and for you. But it's not going to be condensed like it was. It was something that we had to do. People were scared. They were unsure. And many of our election day workers are seniors and at high risk. So, so luckily now we are back to over 700. So if you go to anything that you need election related, you can go to Philadelphia Votes, VOTES, PhiladelphiaVotes.com. If you you go under the voters tab, it'll allow you to find your polling place. So you can once you go to the voters tab, find my polling place, then it will, where's my polling place, it says. And then it will tell you exactly, you put in your address, it'll tell you exactly where to go. Most likely, you're going back to where you were last year's general election, when it looked as it normally does. There are some places that we still couldn't go to. We can't go to the firehouses. We can't go into some of the senior places. There's a few, so it's always a good idea to check. Also, the office is sending out, if not today, maybe in the next few days, everyone in the city will get a postcard to let you know where you go to vote. So hopefully early next week, everyone will know where to go. But if not, PhiladelphiaVotes.com, where's my polling place? Put in your address and you'll find it.
And we do have some other good questions coming in. And one is, well, Joan Burrell, who writes that she is a pollster and encourages everyone to vote early and get it in the mail ASAP. As of today, pollsters were instructed that ballots must be postmarked by 11/3 and counting is only for 3 days. So that's the current word that she as a pollster received, and we'll make sure that hasn't changed drastically, as I'm sure you'll update us. Mike Harris also was curious if the Board of Elections is still looking for poll workers or other election volunteers, or assigning poll workers for election day. How are your numbers there?
We had a really, really great response, and Commissioner Deely is here now if she wants to talk about it, but we were really lucky. We had a great response. Certainly if anybody would like to sign up to be a poll worker, we have been working really hard to fill the spots. So if it can't be somewhere specifically, might not be where you usually go to vote, you know, we can still talk to you about it and see if there's anywhere we can place you, you know, in close to your area or somewhere in the city.
And what's the best way for people to let you know that they'd be available?
They can email me if they'd like. There's also some links on PhiladelphiaVotes.com for different things that we're looking for help with. My email is Trina, TRINA .Bodnik, BODNIK @phila.gov.
Excellent, excellent. And Commissioner Deely, thank you so much for joining us as well. It's good to have you. Another question that came in that I'd like to pose to you is the election office accepting volunteers for the actual vote counting process? And I think maybe we might have lost her.
Oh shoot. That's our wonderful city hall Wi-Fi that we have.
Well, maybe you could tell us, Trina, is who counts the votes and how can people help if they would like to?
So that's a little bit of a tougher question. We do have to do, you know, we have our staff, they're sworn in, and there's a whole process of who can count and when it can get counted and things like that. So, you know, they can certainly reach out to me through my email that I gave you, you know, and I can talk to them about it and see if there's anything that that we could figure out, you know, that they're allowed to do. We just have to be very careful with who's doing what right now.
Yes, and I'm guessing there's not a ton of time to, I'm putting your email address in the chat, if that's
Great.
okay with you.
Sure, yeah.
And because I'm guessing there's not a lot of time to confirm people for counting if counting is needed, but I can let the questions of particular interest come directly to you. And I just want to make sure I had gotten everybody else's questions.
We also just, you know, just offhand, that we also have to be really careful with how many people. I know it just seems like throwing a lot of people in a room to count is a great idea to get it done faster, but we have to be really careful right now about keeping everybody safe and healthy and that kind of stuff. There's so many factors that we don't typically have to worry about that we have to think about now. So
absolutely. And one of my traditions was, luckily our election day is after Halloween. So I would, you know, empty 3/4 of all the Halloween bags out and take them to the poll workers on election day. But you're absolutely right, because I think what many people may not know, it is an unbroken 12 to 15 hour day on election day. So these people are doing a Herculean effort, especially in these conditions. So we've got to be kind to them. We've got to make sure we keep them safe as much as possible. And I guess maybe even check in with ward leaders or whatnot, if anyone wants to help provide food or anything like that.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's not, I don't think it's anything that they expect. You know, they're just, most of them are just really happy to be there to do this for us and for their neighbors. And they are your neighbors. And so just remembering that when you're standing in line for a while on election day, and hopefully this huge mail-in ballot response that we've gotten will cut that down a lot. But you know, in the commissioner's office, we love lines on election day because it means that everybody's voting. I know not everybody loves lines, but we do. It makes us really happy to see that those numbers are getting up there, and all of our efforts and all of the countless sleepless nights are really worth it to us because of all of, you know, all of the response that we get. And it's really great for us to see the response to the mail-in ballot voting in Philadelphia.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Deputy Commissioner Trina Bodnik, and I will put her email up again. And for all the hours that you and the commissioners, please tell Commissioner Deely we're sorry we didn't get to talk more to her. I appreciate the effort in trying to get here, and the best of luck with the next 13 days in this very historic election. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Thank you very much. Please, everybody reach out if I can help answer anything or do anything.
Excellent. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And Mr. Councilman Squilla, we're so thankful that you have joined us and been able to hear about all these questions all the way through from crime and harassment issues to touching on the ATVs to solutions for engagement and structure in our neighborhood and maybe even beyond. But probably one of the biggest questions on many people's minds right now is with this, and tell me if I'm accurate, the 740 million budget shortfall. I think a lot of people are wondering what will return, what will be cut, and how much are we going to be expected to pay for it?
Well, my crystal ball isn't here. I don't have anything in front of me. I just want to add one thing too. If you did get a ballot and for some reason you decided, you know what, I want to vote in person, you can still do that by bringing that ballot, everything, the sign-in sheet, the whole thing with you, and bring it to the polling place where you vote. And they will then dispose of that ballot and allow you to vote on the machines for some reason if that's what you decide to do. So if people got it, never filled it out, or then they decided they don't want to mail it or do anything with it, they also have that option too. So that's, I don't know if that was mentioned earlier, but there is a lot of questions. I know we've been fielding a lot of questions in our office, but I believe the budget process this year is actually going to be tougher than last year. Even though we were in the pandemic, we had a budget that was proposed. We had a new budget, then there was a revised budget that was then proposed by the mayor, where they cut a lot of things out of the budget and made projections. Our issue right now is to see how well we are meeting those projections, where we're up, where we're down, and how do we then look to see what are the needs of the city of Philadelphia residents, what can be cut, and then what added expenses will be put on to the residents to try to raise additional dollars and raise revenue. The longer we go, obviously, you start to see some businesses that are back. You start to see restaurants now opening. We have 50% occupancy in most of them, and a lot of the outdoor dining that people have been frequenting has been doing well. So we are starting to see some increased tax revenue come back into the coffers. So we're hoping by the end of the year, again, our budget is not until June 30th, but we're hoping by the end of the year, we could get a good guideline on where we're going. We believe, though, in the fall and the winter, we're probably going to see an uptick of cases. At least that's what's been predicted all along, that it would probably be a number of cases match what we had when it first started, or maybe a little above. But I think if we see the continuing of tax revenue being generated in the city and we don't have another major shutdown, I think the needs for additional revenue hopefully will be less. We are hearing some things from the administration, just some ideas I think they're posing for residents. And one of them, obviously, we've always been challenged with the assessments that are going on with real estate. Supposedly next year, there will be a real estate assessment. And the administration also, the administration is also looking to do an increase in a real estate rate, which would mean your assessment would go up plus the rate would go up. And that was also proposed this year in this year's budget, and council, did not feel it at the time. And so therefore it didn't move forward. But, looking at the challenging issues with the schools, the resources that may be needed moving forward with the district, there's also a teacher's contract that is in play. And depending on how much additional resources will be needed for that, we will have to come up with those dollars also. We did have an extension for all our city unions. Each union had agreed to a 1-year extension at a 2 or 2.5% raise. And next year there'll be renegotiations in that. Now, will they still get a 1-year extension until we figure out our revenue? I'm not sure. That's through collective bargaining through the administration.
I've told Commissioner Julie several times. I've got such.
We're gonna mute her. Okay, let me just mute that. I think it's be muted. Okay.
Okay. I forget what I was saying, but we were.
The union, what,
Oh yeah,
when you talk about the
So,
extension and the collective bargaining, the extension is putting off the collective bargaining for a year
yeah, what
due
they
to
did
these
was
circumstances?
we did that in March, so that we didn't have to go through a whole collective bargaining to try to do like a 5-year agreement or 3-year agreement or whatever the unions would work toward. The administration and the unions felt that that was the best way to go, not knowing how the pandemic was going to affect the city coffers. So at that time, it seemed like a pretty good idea, and now in hindsight, it was a good idea just to get it out of the way for a year and have them not working without a contract. But this year that contract's up, so we have to look into negotiations, and the administration has the authority to work with the unions through collective bargaining, and that's something that we're going to have to look and see how much additional dollars we would need to cover all those. You have police, you have fire, you have District 33, which is the sanitation workers, city workers, blue collar workers, and then you have 47, the white collar workers through the city. So there's a lot of things happening, and there's a lot of balls up in the air. And how we're doing it at the end, where we come up with additional resources, I'm not sure, but we know that at least those ideas of assessment changes through the OPA, which is supposed to be actual value, whatever your actual value of your home is, and then a possibility, or at least a proposal from the administration of a rate increase on real estate is probably something that is going to be put out there as part of the mayor's budget, and that's usually in March. So we'll be hearing some of that. We'll be hearing some inklings before then, but in March we'll be getting that budget proposal.
Well, the way it sounds, especially after our the trash pickup angst of the spring into summer, and a little bit not really into fall, but so it's obvious that those contracts and collective bargaining are going to be very important to maintain the city services that we've expected, but there's still questions about, are we ever going to see the streets swept again? Is Parks and Rec going to get the money it needs to open things again and man centers the way they need? Where do those kind of issues and priorities for people fall within all of this?
I mean, every council member has their own special priorities. The budget is set by the administration, by the mayor's office. They propose the budget, and then we review the budget, and then we approve it. So they do the initial showing of where the dollars, where they're making cuts, what they want to add, and then we bargain with the administration on what maybe we could give back, what can we cut. If they're asking for additional dollars through a tax increase, we said we don't want to do that tax increase, so therefore we won't increase so-and-so's budget by this much. Obviously, we were supposed to have street sweeping this year. It was proposed in the budget in March, but then after the revised budget back after COVID hit, that money for the street sweeping program was withdrawn. I'm a big advocate of that. I'd like to see that back in the budget, try to figure out a way to grab additional resources. How do we work with our businesses? It's also like, do we go in and open our businesses up safely and try to gain some additional tax revenue? Or do we look to consider a shutdown if our cases go up? How are our hospitalizations going on with COVID and the number of cases that are being sent to our hospitals? All these things are challenges. We'll have probably a better idea come January. But these are things we need to be thinking about now. Parks and Rec, to me, is a main staple for our city. We have rebuild, that's still in the works. You're starting to see some playgrounds start to get redeveloped and money pumped into the playgrounds. But programming is a big aspect of our Parks and Rec. And we need to make sure that programming is put back, especially now. We talk about crime, and we talk about a lot of the crime is being done by young people because there's not much for them to do. We have to make sure that our programming is working in a way that we can engage these folks and give them good structure activity. Parks and Rec is to me, one of the most important aspects of our city government. Now, that may not be shared by all members of council, But anybody I talk to is always fighting for more stuff for their parks, and that and I think I would like to get street sweeping back. If we're going to get additional revenue, can we put it towards street sweeping, or do we have to put it toward the additional contracts with the school district and with the 3347 police and fire? That's something we need to engage in. The only thing is, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you're talking to, we don't have power over the negotiations for collective bargaining with our unions. That is done specifically through the administration. They agree, disagree, they make the agreement. We just have to fund it, right? We got to come up with the resources and find the money to do that. So, but
can you tell us all about any of the benchmarks that you'll use to determine if we're doing well or not? I mean, with a lot of the businesses moving out, a lot of the office buildings vacant at this time, what benchmarks will you use, or are you able to use now to determine things are on an upswing, people are coming back, things are opening again?
Well, we've been getting monthly reports. We get them through our revenue department, and council has their own specific finance people who relay that information to us. Where we're losing heavily in not real estate, but sales tax. You could see the downward tick in sales tax. We are actually seeing an increase in transfer tax, which is amazing, which means people are selling properties and buying properties, which you wouldn't think have happened during this time. We also see a downtick in some of our wage tax. Our wage tax, and that comes from, we didn't really drill down into the wage tax, whether it's a local resident or it's a person outside the city. But we believe the reason why we're starting to see a decrease, a lot of people working from home, if you live in the counties and you don't come into the city, they're not paying the wage tax in the city of Philadelphia because they don't live in the city of Philadelphia. That's something we have to come to grips with. And if people eventually do not come back in, that we're going to have to adjust how we calculate our tax revenue, knowing that gradually that will maybe come back slowly or maybe not come back at all. And right now, it's actually holding pretty close to what projections were, which is surprising. We thought it would be a lot less, knowing that we were closed for a little while. But I think what happened is there were people working. Maybe they weren't working in the city, but they were still working from home. And so those wage taxes were still being paid. A lot of the city workers were still being paid. City's the biggest employer to get revenue for our general fund. So some of the things that we thought. Now again, we know BERT, business income and receipts taxes are down. Business taxes in general are down. UNO taxes are down. That money goes to the schools. Even our liquor by the drink taxes are down. So all these things that we rely on when we do our budget will have to be looked at again. And I think say by the end of the year, because that gives us 6 months to project that. Right now we project it from June till January, and we'll see where we are. If we're pretty close, then we could probably get a pretty good idea where we're going to be in June of next year, because the new budget starts July 1st in 21. So there's going to have to be tough decisions. If I had a crystal ball, I would tell you everything that we're going to do, but I really don't know. I do know that there is probably going to be some type of proposal for a tax increase. And I know that's difficult for most council members to deal with and residents to deal with, but we have to really see what our numbers are. And you're never going to be able to tax your way out of this. I think the goal is how do we grow our income base without raising taxes and the burden on our residents too much. And that's the balance that we have to perform. And once we get the initial message from the mayor's office, I think we'll see there. I failed to mention that there was a proposal. It's always a controversial proposal on the tax abatement. The city's really been looking to increase affordable housing throughout the city, throughout my district, and through all the districts in the city of Philadelphia. And there's a proposal for a 1% construction tax. That 1% construction tax would put money into the Housing Trust Fund for affordable housing. It also would put money into people, first-time home buyers, for down payment assistance and closing cost assistance. If you're a first-time home buyer, resident of the city of Philadelphia, you would be able to apply for that and get that assistance. Because what we realized, a lot of folks are able to pay rent. They just never had enough resources to put that money down and then be able to close on a mortgage. So we tried it last year and we was pretty successful, but we didn't have enough money in there. So we think with the 1% tax on construction, the ability to grow that, it would be a $400 million borrowing that would be paid back by the construction tax. It'd be $100 million a year over 4 years. And that would hopefully be able to spur some more income generating jobs and affordability throughout the city of Philadelphia. But the exchange for that would be the abatement would be extended for 3 years and then phased out. Right now, it's supposed to phase out January 31st. December.
It will be extended for 3 years.
It would be extended for 3 years and then phased out. So that's the trade-off on it. So we're trying to balance that now. That was introduced, I think Thursday, I think it was introduced. So we have to have public hearings on that. We have to have, we're trying to get input now from folks to see where the best to put the $100 million a year into. We're also trying to work through private developers who are paying this construction tax to also be able to include affordability in their projects that they develop. So that's a tax basically on one industry. It's probably not going to affect everybody as a whole, but it could have a lot of benefits to the city because it also includes commercial corridor money, which means increase in grant cleaning for commercial corridors, increase in lighting, increase in facade improvements and things like that for our commercial corridors. So there's a lot of opportunity. It's still in flux of where all that money would go, but there's a lot of great ideas and it's worth the conversation to see if it's something that we could do. And we would have to pass that obviously before the end of the year in order for it to work.
I want to remind anybody, I wanted to remind anybody who wanted to ask questions to please do. And we do have Helene Roseman. Why won't they extend the teacher's contract for 1 year with the 2.5% raise?
I think they could do that. I mean, again, we're not involved in the negotiations and the collective bargaining through administration. We did that with the other unions. I'm not sure the PFT would support that. I mean, but I think that would be the easiest thing to do, and it would get us at least to a year. It's not like kicking the can down the road, but we would know better what our finances are after next year. And hopefully once the vaccine comes in and we get back to some type of normality, we'll be able to predict better of how our revenue stream will be. So to me, that's a good idea. I mean, would the PFT support that? I'm not sure. And if the collective bargaining, maybe some of the teachers out there would chime in, but. And
just to reiterate, that is done through the bargaining is through the mayor and his administration and not the council. So
yeah,
that's
they don't let us get involved in that.
I do. Kevin Creed asks a very good question, which is, when will the street repaving be completed for all the streets that have been ripped up in Queen Village?
Yeah, especially Front Street, right? They were supposed to actually start the repaving. They did all the milling, right? Then they broke out all the parts of the street around the manhole covers, and they were supposed to have completed all the handicap ramps that have to go now with repaving. So this project has now actually taken longer, since the federal mandate is once you repave it, you have to make sure you have the handicap ramps done also. So it sort of delayed our process a little bit, but it was actually supposed to start on the 19th to repave it. It did get delayed a week, is from what we're hearing. So we're hoping maybe next Tuesday that they would start the repaving. And if you want to email me, I could try to get a better idea from streets when that would happen. That's a subcontracted out there. The city actually, I'm lying, that the city subcontracts the milling, but that we do the paving. So we should have a better idea. Probably tomorrow, maybe today. They might have us given us some new information. They usually give us updates on it, but we can.
It's definitely, yeah, it's definitely been a challenge for cyclists through the neighborhood, and the continuing closure of
not the
random
ATV,
blocks.
dirt bikes. You mean
Not the
bikes.
ATVs, yes, the bicycles. Another question that came up that's not on this list, but came through me from another source was the contractors that are used by the city to cut trees away from electric lines, power lines, really hack them to death. And I think anyone who can walk around and see a tree that's shaped like a U knows that that's not the way it was naturally supposed to grow. Is there any input, any directives, or is it just go cut away what you need to? Because it is something that's been ricocheting around recently, because it seems all these maintenance projects are happening at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of good to see the maintenance is happening, because that's also a pet peeve of mine. If we kept up with the maintenance, we would probably spend a lot less money in the long run. But as far as Pico does, that is not Parks and Rec. If Parks and Rec has arborists to do the work, the trees that you see V'd out, that's done by Pico. They do also hire a landscaping contractor to do that, except they have to have those trees a specific distance from the power lines. And that's mainly because of storms and other reasons. When they pull the power lines down, you'll see some trees are wrapped all around them and cover the lines. It kind of looks nice because you don't see the lines, you see the trees. But they will, every year you'll see them come down there and V those trees out. And that's not really a landscaping architect type job. That's just a safety feature that they do. So if you have a tree that it's in the middle of the lines, they will, do their best. I know that the neighbors that are on top of them sometimes don't get as bad a job as people who don't pay attention. We have some folks that are very, very particular on how their tree is going to be trimmed, even when Pico's out there trying to move it away from the lines, and they actually do a better job where it is away from the lines, but it doesn't look like you got a hole in the middle of your tree. But if you have a particular issue on that, we could connect you to Pico and their landscape contractors and work with them if they're doing something close by.
I'm sorry, I'm connecting my hotspots because I think I've got a bunch of virtual schoolers doing homework at exactly the same time. So I got a little delayed on that. Kevin, I can't see, I don't want to pull.
I could look if we lose Eleanor to see if this is in the chat or is in the questions.
Did you get that, or did I freeze?
You froze. I didn't hear what the question was.
I just pointed out that Kevin Reeves followed up with the fact that Pico's website says not to do that. I guess it's the being out. So my question to you was, what is the best way for neighbors to advocate for trees? Because the last crew was not receptive to hearing from neighbors.
Usually once, if we get a complaint from them and we contact Pico, we get the contractor to speak directly to that neighbor during the pruning process. So if you want to reach out to us, my office, or reach out to you guys, and then you guys forward it to us, they'll connect directly to the property owner and work with them on the best way. Again, just like anything else, there's some contractors are better than others, and but we got to let Pico know about it so that they don't do this or hire these folks in the future. But we've been pretty successful recently. If people get on it right away, usually they do post a sign on the street, and sometimes we go to Parks and Rec accidentally and say, hey, what's going on here? Who's doing the work? And they'll say, oh, that's not our permit, that's Pico's permit. And then we know they don't inform our office, but they do put a sign up. And maybe we could even do something to make sure when they are going to do that tree, they could put a note in somebody's door, just to let them know your tree is going to be trimmed, and that, if you have any questions, this is our contact information. But they don't do that I'm aware of. But they do post the signs for either no parking or tree work, the next day or so.
So we stay on top of those signs and either get in touch with us, with you, and see how to connect residents through PICO to whoever's been contracted.
Yeah, either Parks and
Work
Rec
on
or PICO. It's only one or two of them that are doing those trimming, unless it's an
I think
individual.
it's PICO.
Yeah, unless it's an individual homeowner who's doing the permit thing, but they would know about it at that point. So most likely the problems come with PICO, and they're who they chose as a landscape contractor.
Mhm. And I want to ask the rest of the community that if there are any last questions for Councilman Squilla as we get ready to wrap up here. I want to make sure that everything and everyone has been heard. I want to thank you so much for coming, Councilman. It's a busy time. There are a lot of moving parts, and we hope you'll come back again in January around that time and let us know how the projections are feeling, what is going to happen, what we can count on closer. And again, we'll continue to work with you and anyone else who wants to connect with you for partnering in the after school structured time for our neighborhood. Commissioner Deely, she's off again. I was going to thank her. She popped back up.
I want to thank her too for all their hard work they're doing. This is an important election. We need everybody to vote. And
we need to unmute her. I'm going to see if we can unmute her.
I think she's.
You're mute.
There she goes.
There you go.
Sorry, I was late. I'm sure that Trina did a fabulous job. That my staff knows more than me, so you're better off with them than me. Certainly, we want to make sure that everybody is a voter. We have many options, that we never had before in Pennsylvania. So whatever you're doing, whatever your plan is, make that plan. Make that plan. Either apply online for a mail-in ballot and vote from the comfort of your home. Go to CAPA and get a mail-in ballot printed on demand, or go to any one of our 17 satellite offices. You can go to the satellite office, they'll print it out. You can vote right there, or you could take it home, or you can vote in person on election day. Whatever you do, don't leave your mail-in ballot on the refrigerator, or if you're like me, put it in the visor of your car. You want to make sure that you get it to us, either by dropping it off in a drop box at a satellite center or a purpose-built ballot box. Just make sure that you have a plan and that you vote. Thank you. Sorry I was late, and good to see you.
Commissioner Deely, thank you. And to echo Councilman Squilla, thank you for everything you're doing for ensuring the integrity of the Philadelphia portion of this national election, because it is an important one. And we know the hours that are going into it, and it's appreciated. And we're all looking forward to seeing what the outcome is. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Councilman Squilla. And before I say
2 months in a row.
Yes. We'll get you for 8 months in a row if you'll do it. But to just in closing for everyone who's on the Zoom, after November 4th, we open up the Queen Village board elections, and I want to tell you that we have 5 director positions open, and our candidates for those are Kate Allen, Khalid Ali, Matt Atkins, Joe Bryn, Cindy McDonald, Anita Brooke Dupree, Michelle Grimley, Mike McPhilmy, and Mike Seidenberg. And we are going to have more information about the election process. Like in Philadelphia, there was always an absentee ballot process set aside, which will now be the only process we can have people, because we usually do it at a community meeting, which will be in November. Can't do that since our community meeting is all virtual. So you'll be able to have 10 days to stop by the office and vote. We'll be getting more of that information out. I want to thank everybody for the excellent questions and the excellent feedback. And of course, all the panelists that join us. Please thank Trina for us. She was fantastic, Commissioner. And also Captain Hartzell, who is a great community partner as well. So for everybody, I want to say we pulled it off in an hour and a half. Thank you for taking the time out of your evening, one and all. and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Good night.
Great job. Thank you all.
Thank you.